All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to EECS 494 Discussion. I believe this is number 5 for the winter 2021 semester. Last week we talked about Pro Builder, which is a built-in tool to Unity for making 3D models pretty quickly. This week I'm going to be talking about 2D art. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the pixel art tool Aseprite, which you can find at aseprite.org. Aseprite is a paid program, and I want to mention that we never want you to pay for anything in this class, for just using in this class. Aseprite does have a free trial version. The only limitation of this is that you can't create save files. You just have to keep the program running until you export your files as images to use in other programs. Apart from the trial, there's also older versions. There's the 0.9.5 version, which is completely unlocked, available for free. This version is missing a few features like layers, I believe, and color curves, but it has a lot of the main features that the main version has. So that also is available to you. For my demonstration today, I will be using the full version of the program because I happen to own it for my personal projects. I believe the full price of the program is $20. Yeah. So, the other thing I wanted to mention about the website is they have some great documentation. They have a FAQ, frequently asked questions. There's a quick reference sheet for all of the different keyboard shortcuts available in the program. And then after that, there are a couple great, YouTube tutorials on how to use the program. But I sort of would be I'm here to sort of introduce you to it as well in my own sort of mini tutorial. So, without further ado, let's get to the program. So when you launch the program, it's going to look like this. Aseprite itself is a kind of a work of art. It looks very pretty, and it's like got this cute pixel aesthetic going on. I'm going to hit new file to make a new project. I'm going to make it 32 by 32 pixels. When you create a sprite, you have 3 options for colors. RGBA, which means each pixel in your picture is going to have a color and then a transparency. There's grayscale, where it can be any gray color between black and white and some transparency. And then there's indexed mode, which is where you can have a color palette. And each color that you use on the sprite is actually indexing into an array of colors, and then you can switch out what that array of colors is. In other words, you can switch the color palette very easily when you're in indexed mode. That might be good if you're making, say, a multiplayer game where all the player characters look the same but will have different color schemes. For the demonstration, I'm going to use RGBA, and I'm going to pick my background as transparent because I'm going to be showing you how to import this into Unity as well. There are a couple of advanced options if you want to not use square pixels, but square pixels are where it's at. So I'm going to hit OK. And this is the main view for Aseprite. So let me kind of go over the various parts of the interface. On the right here, we have the toolbar, which lets you select the tool that you're currently using to make art. In the middle here, we have the sprite editor itself, which is where we're going to be, making our sprite art. We have this little preview window, which is a little pop-up for if we're zoomed all the way in, we can visualize what our full art is going to look like in this preview window. Down here is the timeline, where if you're using multiple layers in your art, similar to, Photoshop, or if you have multiple frames and you're making an animated sprite, the timeline is where you can choose what layer and what frame you're working on of your animation. And then over on the left side, we have the color bar, where it has all of the sort of these existing colors that are sort of built in, and then there's a full color selector down here. And you'll notice when you sort of pick a color for you to have, either using RGB, HSV, all these different things, you'll see a little red exclamation point here. You can add that color into the palette here, and then you can select it later if you like that color that you created. Aseprite has a foreground and background color, so you can essentially, when you're drawing here in the sprite editor, using left click will use the foreground color, using right click will use the background color. And same in the color bar here, right clicking will set what the background color is going to be. So if I right click on green here, you see green is set the background color. Left click on this sort of pinkish red, the foreground color is set to that pinkish red. That's sort of how you can change colors here. Yeah, other than that, why don't we just start getting into it? I'm going to start off with the pencil tool. That's the sort of the basic draw one pixel at a time. It's the pencil. You can increase the size of the pencil up here. So I can make it 3 pixels wide, 2 pixels wide. You can change the shape of it if you want it to be circular, so that if you have a pick a bigger size, a circular pencil brush will look like this, a square will look like this, and then you can also create a sort of a line if you want to create this sort of chalk-like. It's like taking a piece of chalk and using it on its side when you're drawing. For this, I'm going to stick to a pixel size of 1 with the square brush. And then there's also this setting here called simple ink type. In the Aseprite documentation, let me pull that up. Drawing, go to ink. There are a couple different ink types. For this demo, I'm going to show you simple ink and shading, but the other types of ink that you can use to draw are also very useful depending on what you're doing. So now let's go ahead and let's just make something. I think we will make a little slime character, and we're going to animate it bouncing up and down. So let's start by just... Actually, no. Why don't we just draw out the shape that we're going to have here? No, I don't like that. This seems like a pretty good circle. Does it look like a slime, though? Actually, let's just make it a bouncing ball, which is the, a great demo. So I'm going to actually, instead of using the pencil tool, I'm going to switch to the shape tool. Switch to filled ellipse. Why don't we... Yeah. I will make this ellipse like this. And then here's it looks like a circle, and we can now switch over to the shading tool to shade it and make it look like a nice color. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bunch of different gray colors and then add them to the palette here. There they all are. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press and hold shift and select all of these colors. And remember that I have the shading tool right now, the shading version of ink. And so now if I switch back over to the pencil tool, I can... Let me switch over to the shading tool. I can left click, or I can right click, sorry. Right clicking with the shading tool active will increase the lightness, will give you a lighter shade over the place that you're coloring. So you can see things are becoming sort of light here. Fill this in completely. And then I'm gonna right click again and then be shading in an even lighter shade up here. Even lighter up here, and then you sort of use our lightest color up here. And there you go. There's a sort of little shaded little ball here. We used both the simple ink and the shading tool to get that done, which is kind of fun. Now, why don't we add some animation to it? We're going to make it squish a little bit and then bounce back up. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click here and we're going to select a new frame. And then we're going to show onion skin, because what onion skin means is we can preview what the previous frame was while we're doing our current frame. So the way I'm going to animate this is I'm going to use the selection tool to select it. Then I'm going to make it slightly smaller. I'll make it like squish a little bit, like that much. And then I'm going to hit Alt-N and make a new frame again. And then I'm going to squish it a little bit more. Hit a new frame again. We're going to squish it one more time. Yep. And then what we're going to do is we can play our animation and we can see it's like squishing. And then why don't we add this frame over here and then make a duplicate of this frame over here. And then duplicate our first frame again and then drag it all the way over to the end. And now it's squishing up and down and it's a little dancing, bouncing ball. So we have created an animated sprite, just that quick and easy. Why don't I also add a new layer? And I'm going to put this layer on top. And we're going to make it blue. We're going to make it green, and we're going to switch over to the pencil tool again, simple ink, and I'm going to draw a little face. This is a bit of a light green. We'll pick a darker green. Maybe like that much. Here's our little friend. He's smiling. And then what we can do, if we want to keep the face the same on all of these, we can link these cells, and that makes all of them have the same thing. But we can see that that doesn't look actually that great. So let's unlink them. But why don't we link the first two? Actually, why don't we just hide this and we'll draw a slightly squished face when he's getting squished. This is face, and then we'll just copy paste back. Hold on. Uh-oh. Sorry. What's happened? Did I mess up? I guess I did. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just get rid of that layer. We tried. It was worth a shot. In any case, we have this. Did we add a frame? Yeah, we did. Let's just delete that frame as well. Sorry. So we have our animation of a bouncing little sprite. What else can we do that's cool? Yeah, there's the paint bucket tool. It's a gradient tool. Why don't we give it a cool background? I'll add some dithering onto it. So I'm gonna select green in the foreground and this sort of like gray in the background. And it creates this sort of like dithered background behind the thing. I can completely remove dithering, and it's a nice gradient. It's like a full pixely gradient. It looks much better if you like look in the preview window down here, zoomed out, what it looks like. In any case, that's another tool that's great. The gradient tool. There's the move tool, which, as you can imagine, moves the sprite around. You can zoom in and out. There's a color picker if you want to get access to a color that you used before but you didn't save it. There's line tools if you want to draw lines, which is great. And on top of all of those sort of tools, there's a lot of other adjustments. There's, a color curve feature, where if you're not familiar with color curves, these can be used to adjust the colors on things and give them some shading. So I actually will give this a little bit of greenness because I think that's always looks nice when you have like these sorts of rocks. I'm gonna hit OK. Here's sort of our finished sprite if we take a look. Oh, I guess that only applied to that one. Why don't we apply it to all of them? Cool. There are other effects, like you can do outline. There's an outline tool. You can switch what color mode you're using in the sprite. What else? Yeah, there's just a whole lot of features. I'm just kind of brushing at the top of the feature list here with this demo. But in any case, once you have, an animated sprite or an unanimated sprite, here's how you can export it. Let's do that. I'm going to hit File. I'm going to hit Export Sprite Sheet. You can do a normal export here where you can export it as a GIF, an animated GIF to like share on social media or something. Or if you go to this drop down and choose PNG, it'll export it as PNG files for you. Each frame a separate PNG file, which is okay, but then it just creates a whole bunch of files on your computers, which can be a little bit annoying. So what I recommend for using with Unity is to use the Export Sprite Sheet tool, where what it will do is it'll create a single PNG file with all of the sprites in a line like this. And you can say you want it to be an output file. I will go to my 494 folder and I will save this as squish.png. And then we will keep everything else normal and the same. And I'm going to hit export. Wait, actually, we want to do trim sprite. Sorry, I want to make sure we trim the sprite because we want to keep the size of the total sprite the same as the size of the actual thing that we drew rather than the full 32 by 32 that we used. So once we do that, I'm going to hit export and it should have created that sprite sheet for us. If I go ahead and go into Google here, it created sprite sheet squish.png, which is our little sprite sheet here. Once you have that sprite sheet PNG created, you can go into Unity. You can, why don't I just drag it in here? You can click and drag in your squish here, my squish.png, and then we can open it up in the sprite editor here. So we say sprite mode multiple, And then we say sprite editor, and then we can say type grid by cell size. And then we say grid by cell size 20 by 20. And then we hit slice. Oh, was it not 20? It might be. I might have gotten it wrong. Let me check here. What is the width of our thing? It starts at 7 and it goes to 25, which makes it 18. So we probably actually want to make this 18 by 18. Or I might be just measuring this wrong. Why don't we make the X 19 and the Y 20? We slice it. There we go. That looks perfect. And it's sliced our sprite like this into all of its different things. And then we hit apply. And now you see it's all these separate sprites. And then as I showed you in a previous thing, you can press shift and select all of these, drag them into the scene. And then Unity will save this as a new animation. You could say squish.anim. And then if I go ahead and in the inspector select squish, why don't we scale it up? We also will want to, as always, set the filter mode to point, so no filter. And then we go ahead and press play. Here's our little squishing ball, and it's been put into Unity. Yeah, so in summary, if you're doing 2D pixel artwork for your game and you're looking for a program to do that with, while you could use something like just built-in Paint on Microsoft or, Paint.net or other free tools, Aseprite has a lot of features designed specifically around sprite editing and pixel art. And again, as a free version, the only disadvantage is you can't save your projects. You just have to export them directly after you're done with them. Which is a little bit of a disadvantage, but it still might be worth checking out for you. I personally am a huge fan of Aseprite, and I always highly recommend it to anyone who's looking to get into sprite work and pixel art. I will have a link to download this in the description of the video. Otherwise, that's all I have this week. Good luck on P2 Gold, and I will see you all next week. Have a great weekend.